try to give you some great takeaways, give you some understanding of why you might have some expectations of some of the people around you. And frankly, you're a little bit disappointed in some people simply because of the 6 stages of every crisis, challenge, or change. And then I'm going to give you 5 ways that you can kind of help people through this. For many people, any crisis, challenge, or change. And I'm just not talking the virus. I'm talking, let's say you retired. Let's say you're not sure you want to go get a new iPhone or a new smartphone because you're not sure you want to learn everything about it. It takes time. Our brains are hardwired to not like change. And then I'm going to give you 7 leadership reminders, just things to keep, things you already know, but things that are going to stay in the top of your mind so that when something happens, you think, oh, well, that's maybe why people are going to do that. With that, some of you have retired already, and congratulations. Some of you are still in business. Some of you are taking care of other people. These techniques work in all kinds of situations. So a few things I want to talk to you about right away. How have we been affected by the crisis? Well, the oil and gas situation continues to be a bit of a struggle, as you all know better than I do. I did grow up in Dallas, so I do have a little bit of a background in that area, and I do work for energy companies as well. Perryton, like every other small town, has been affected with the shutdown of retail and the shutdown of a lot of restaurants. Of course, the hospitality and the travel industry continues to be hit hardest, but it is also going to come back the fastest. Many people ask, hey, are we in a recession? Now, I am a card-carrying, crystal ball-toting economist. My PhD is actually in economics, and I wake up every single morning and look at economic data. We are not in a recession. Last year, second quarter, we were down by 33% for our gross domestic product, our GDP. And many of you are remembering back going, yeah, it was bad. But then we were up by 31%. Now that's across the country. It doesn't mean just in Texas or just in specific areas. But overall, we're up by 31%. And then fourth quarter was disappointing because it only came in at about 4.4%. And that was disappointing because normally the holiday season does spur consumer spending. So very quickly, and this just might be fun for you, when we talk about gross domestic product, we are talking about our entire GDP, and that is our consumer expenditures, and that's what you and I spend all the time. It's our business investment, our business capital, our business inventories. It's our government expenditures, and then it's our exports minus our imports as that aggregate number. Now, of that, consumer expenditures is the most important. Consumer expenditures is 70% in normal years of our GDP. In normal years, our government expenditures are only between 16 and 17%. This past year, of course, these past 12 months, that government expenditure number has been higher with all the stimulus, the research, all of those committees, all of those things going toward the virus expenditures, of course. And then our exports and our imports are both down. So it's kind of amazing that the United States GDP for 2020 was only down by 3.5% for the whole year. The only developed economy on the planet that was up last year, you guessed it, China. So just something interesting to keep in mind. Some people say, well, are we in a recession because it feels like a recession? We are not in a recession. And in fact, growth for 2021 looks very, very good, partly because it's being artificially propped up by all of the government stimulus. It's artificial, of course. And somebody does have to pay that national debt. That's a whole different conversation. And do I stay awake at night thinking about that? Yes, I do. It concerns me. So when we're talking about what we do next, I talk about how do we lead, how do we sell in terms of being great at our business, how do we lead and sell our way out of this? So unlike other things, other recessions, other crises, this did affect the entire world. And so this is why I think it's important and helpful to understand why some people are really still struggling and why some folks were very matter of fact and moved right through it. So let's look at our 2021 vision. For most businesses, for most organizations, there are 4 components that create value for you moving forward with your business. And I like to categorize things when I can using acronyms. And my acronym for your people, which is the most important, is called ARMED. armed how to attract, recruit and retain, mentor, manage, evolve, and develop your current and next generation of leaders. Then we have to move into technology and tools. What needs to be innovated? What needs to be advanced? What kind of resources do we have? And where do those resources need to be allocated? And this is true just for our own homes too. Maybe with everything going on virtually, maybe you needed a new computer, or maybe you needed to learn something new. It could be part of your business advancement as well. And then managing the uncertainty. As leaders in all levels, and if you're sitting in this room, you're a leader in some way, shape, or form, we have to make sure that people understand things like we are not currently in a recession, although it feels that way. And partly it's because we haven't been able to spend money. There's actually pent-up demand because there's no place to go to spend it. You can't go to all the baseball games that you were doing before. Maybe things have been shut down. Maybe you haven't been traveling because things were shut down. There's nowhere to go. We have to manage the risks associated with running our business in any time, but specifically now. There's signs all over buildings saying this is what's going on, please do this, all the things that we kind of took for granted before, like, by the way, our place is clean. Now there's signs telling you their places are clean. And then consumer confidence. Consumer confidence is how comfortable people feel to spend money. And for many people, they felt okay spending money after that second quarter, but again, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for them to spend. And then customer wants and needs have shifted. You might be interested to know that in 2020, we did have a lot of bankruptcies. Stores like JCPenney and Steinmart and Lord & Taylor declared bankruptcy. But keep in mind that they had already started shutting down their brick and mortar stores before 2020. But because, again, the retail sales weren't there and retail's been hit hard, those stores, as well as several others, have had to declare bankruptcy. And then we talk about how do we then take all of this information and grow our business, because we still have businesses to run. We still have communities to run. We still have organizations to run. We still have to focus on growth, whether it's an organizational growth, business growth, personal growth, family growth. So for that, we have to focus on strategy. We've got to make sure that we're optimizing all of our people, our technology and tools. We've got to define the opportunities moving forward. And then we have to look at how we're differentiating our products and services from someone else's, especially in a town like Perryton. We've got to make sure if we sell it in our town, like Harvey's Electronics, that people will buy from us instead of maybe driving into Amarillo or someplace else to buy something. We want to make sure that we have differentiated ourselves so that people buy from us. Now, this is the 411 on me. I do have a PhD in economics. I did go to the Naval Academy. I was very fortunate to have a 21-year career after that. I am considered, there's a list. So there's a list. I'm the 56th most influential economist right now in the world. They've stopped the list. So I think I'm frozen in time. If only I could, freeze other things in time, that would be great. My husband was a Marine, and I write, since I got out of the Navy, mostly I try to crank out a book a year. And my latest book, and I will be talking about it tomorrow, is called The 5-Minute Leadership Guide. And the premise behind that is trying to help, especially our emerging leaders, some of our younger leaders, stay focused, understand priorities, practice leadership skills on a day-to-day basis, and they can do it in less than 5 minutes a day. That's the idea. So that was me then. This is sort of me now, depending upon the hair. And so this situation is different, as I said, because it is global. And for many people, when we start thinking about the stages, it is likened to the J curve of change. These all start with R, which makes it easy for me to remember. So I use acronyms and I use things that are grouped together and easy to remember. So the first stage of any crisis, challenge, or change is the rejection stage. So think about anything that's ever happened that's not good. Say you hear that there's a car accident and you don't even know who's in it, but you're like, oh no, is everybody okay? And then they're like, oh yeah, it happened out on, Highway 10 or whatever. It's far away. It's no big deal. But then you go, okay. So our brain automatically goes to, does it affect me? And if it doesn't, then we kind of reject it. And this is what many people did with the virus as well. And then then our brain goes into the recognition phase. So all of a sudden in the virus case, we said, well, gosh, I'm not going to be traveling, so I'll save money on commuting. I can work in sweatpants. I'm working at home more, so I can work in short pants, or I can work in yoga pants, whatever that looks like. And then I have to work from home. I get to work from home. I have to get to. Well, for many people, working from home is not a great solution. Working from home for a lot of people means nobody has enough computers. You might not have enough internet bandwidth. Maybe there's a lot of people trying to get a lot done in a small space, and it can be pretty rough. And all of a sudden you recognize, oh gosh, I get to work from home. Oh, but I have to work from home. And for some people, going to work was a good place. And for some kids who had to stay home, that school was a good place too. And then everybody says, I want more time with family. Sometimes that's until you have more time with family. So that's supposed to be funny. I hope you're laughing. And keep in mind, I can hear you. So then we started figuring out how to work from home. Our animals, of course, are happy. So by a show of hands, because I can see you as well as hear you, how many of you have animals at home? Just raise your hand because I can see you. Oh, good. Okay, fantastic. All right. And so in some cases, we're homeschooling kids. And in some cases, we've called in reinforcements. We've called in, aunts, uncles, grandparents, because we're still trying to work, and we're trying to homeschool more than one child at a time. And we're trying to keep everything together. It's challenging. And for some of us, our office managers, while cute and adorable, are not as helpful as we might want them. This leads us into the realization phase. The realization phase is about us figuring out what we have to do in order to start coping with the situation to protect us, our family, our business, our community. It remains very myopic. The first 4 stages of any crisis, challenge, or change stays very much circle the wagons, protect yourself, protect the people you care about, protect your community, protect your job. And that means I have to step up my leadership, both at home and at work. People need more reassurances from me. People need to know, gosh, we've been through World War II and Korea and Vietnam and stagflation in the 70s. We'll get through this too. So if you've got some experience in getting through challenges, now is a good time to offer other people a little bit of perspective. For some people, this also means they needed better technology, maybe both at home and at work. Maybe there's more B2C going on. Maybe in the store you have, maybe now you've had to put an online component there. My family might need more of my time because they're coping with more things too. Maybe I need to reconfigure my home as a home office and a home school. And we know that this not only has lasted for over a year, but it's going to continue. This is not going away. Now, with any crisis, challenge, or change, and if some of you do remember the oil shortage of 73 to 75, remember the odd and even days, remember when we would line up at the gas pump, we didn't necessarily need a whole lot of gas, but that was our day to go get gas. So we beautifully lined up and got gas. And that was we knew it was going to be just a couple years. And so for some people, they thought, well, if it goes longer than a year, I'm going to make a big change. So if we think the impact is going to be short-lived, then we don't make a whole lot of changes. But if we think it's going to last for a long time, then we start to make permanent changes. And this is where some people are just now figuring this out. I have a friend that during that crisis of 73, 75, she went out and bought a motorcycle. She said, gas prices are crazy. I'm going to be efficient. I'm going to ride a motorcycle. So that was pretty funny. And then we've set our home up for a home office. We've started to figure this out. And this leads us into the resolution stage. And that's, we're in this together. We can do this. Let's support each other. Now, very quickly, think about what stage do you think the majority of the people around you might be in? For most people, they've stayed in one of these first 4 cycles. The rejection stage, hey, this virus thing isn't that bad. I don't see what the big deal is. The recognition phase, I've got to have to work from home. I'll save money. The realization phase of my family needs more of my time. People need more reassurances from me. Maybe they need my perspective. Or the resolution phase. We're in this together. So think about it for a second and think about some of the important people in your life and figure out where they might be. Now, some of you, because you're here, maybe you progressed into one of the stages 5 of 6, and that could be the reality phase where you say, okay, this is the new reality. Got it. Thousands of details will change as getting people together in large groups moving forward is always going to be more difficult. It just is. So that's the new reality. So people are saying, well, let's get things back to normal. There's never going to be things back to normal. I know a lot of people who are nostalgic for 2019. Okay, maybe it was easier, but it's still not going to change what has to happen moving forward. So this is part of this. And then the 6th stage is the realignment phase. Now, this is where we stop being myopic and we are focused on other people. This is all about servant leadership, being a great pillar of your community and looking at the needs of others, not in a coddling sort of way, but it's how are we better supporting our customers? What are we doing to work cooperatively with our competition? Because again, we've got to be mindful of our scarce resources. We've got to be making sure that we're being innovative. We've got to make sure that we are advancing in the best possible ways. And then we have to ask ourselves, where can we improve our processes? What can we do to make it easier for people to either buy from us or do the right thing? Let's say we're retired and we want people in the community to do the right thing. Whatever that right thing is, people maybe need your leadership. How do we help them get to that point? What do we need to do differently moving forward? How does this change what we do, both in our business and in the community and in our family? How does this change our organizational strategic planning moving forward? Are we adding in technology? Are we doing more online components? What are we doing? And then how do we help our team who may be struggling with dealing with change? Because the J curve of change is a little bit like the 6 stages of any challenge, crisis, or change. But the J curve is that part where something gets introduced and then it gets worse before it gets better, because frankly, people don't want to deal with it. So people start off with the denial phase and then they actively resist. And then they realize, okay, if I'm going to keep my job, I'm going to have to learn this software. I'm going to have to work for the new boss, or I'm going to have to move across town, whatever the change is. And then they get into the exploration phase and then they finally commit. And that's when the change becomes real. And then we adapt. Now, again, the habenula of our brain does not like change, which is why change is hard. Now, some people say change is only hard if you're older, and that's not true. We are all very adaptable to change. What I try to tell some of my 19-year-old students is it's not that we as an older person are slow to adapt to change. It's kind of like operating systems. Think about, we first learn something and then we have to learn something on top of that. And it's an overlay on top of that and an overlay on top of that. And remember, you at 19, you've only got like 1 or 2 operating systems. Me at my age, I've got like 50. And all that information now has to be processed through all those operating systems. It might work for you to explain why sometimes you're looking at something going, why in the world is this my cell phone not working the way I want it to? So where do we need to allocate our scarce resources? What do we as leaders need to create or develop that will help our community advance? So think about everything on this list and then think about if we all focused on doing one thing to improve the community, what could we accomplish? And then how do we respond quickly to what markets need? And then how do we stay focused? For some people, disruption has caused them to also feel disrupted in their brain, and it's hard for them to stay focused. And then how do we position ourselves for moving into the future? See, this is the realignment phase. And as leaders and community participants, we have to look outwardly. We have to figure out how do we then serve other people and move forward. So this is where my leaders are. They're in the reality and the realignment phase. And again, some people moved into this pretty quickly. And some of you are like, so it's a year or 2 with the virus. No big deal. I don't see what the big deal is. And for you, you moved into this very, very quickly. Other people could still be stuck in the first 4 stages. So, so how do we improve our customer experiences if they're coming into our store? If somebody is coming into the town of Perryton, how do we help them sell or buy as much as possible while they're there to stimulate our local economy? And what do I need to do to think about for doing or thinking or planning that will move things into the future even better? So a few things. Several industries, as we all know, have suffered greatly from what's happened in the past 12 months. And they tend to be, of course, the hospitality, the hotels and restaurants and airlines, of course, but some industries have benefited from what's been going on. Obviously, if you are in research in the medical world and you've been able to crank out a vaccine, you've probably done pretty well this year. Other industries, though, have benefited as well. Convenience stores have done well because many people who otherwise would maybe stop at a fast food restaurant, well, a lot of fast food restaurants, the lobbies were closed. You got to go to the bathroom somewhere. And when you're driving, all of a sudden, these places have done more business. Also, 86% of Americans do buy their gasoline at convenience stores. I thought Perryton just might find that interesting. Now, anything that deals with delivery has increased. So even in small towns, we are seeing the numbers of deliveries increase by a lot. And for many people who decided they did not want to maybe go too far outside the house, this has been awesome. And it creates jobs. So the delivery system, it was tempting, I know, at the beginning to think, oh gosh, people are just being lazy by staying home. But all of a sudden you realize, wow, this is creating jobs and this is great. The home building industry continues to soar for a couple reasons. First, people are migrating out of the big cities because everything is shut down while I live there. And if you're working from home anyway, there's no reason to, pay Manhattan, New York rent when you can pay Manhattan, Kansas rent and have more house, schools with more land, all kinds of other benefits as well. So people have moved. The numbers are interesting because we're kind of at a shortage of housing in the United States right now. The housing starts last year were down by almost 500,000 or 500,000, so 500,000. And the completions were not up to where they should be. So that's a bit of an issue. The other part of it is with more people staying home, all of a sudden they realized, I want more home, or I need to change things in the home. That both the new constructions as well as the remodeling has created a competition for labor as well as materials. So we need people who know how to use all of these tools, but we also need to understand that the price of our resources has gone up. Steel prices have gone up by a lot. And this was from last Thursday, a week ago, on what this looks like moving forward. The steel prices for both US and our imports from China and Europe, all the prices are just all over the map. Lumber prices have also increased. If you're seeing this, you're not alone. So I just thought you might find this really interesting that the best numbers I found were about a month ago, but all of a sudden the price of lumber per 1,000 board foot is over $1,000 now, up 188% since the start of the pandemic. And for new home construction, they're saying that lumber prices are adding at least $24,000 to the price tag of a single family home. So that's a lot. And then we've also got a shortage of truckers. Over the next 2.5 years, we've got a shortage of truckers of about 30,000. We need truckers. So if you know of anybody who's thinking about driving, just likes to drive, trucking companies will train them. There are more and more women, by the way, in the trucking industry. There is an association called Women in Trucking, and they're trying to get more women interested in driving trucks. So I think that's really fantastic because we need more truckers. We need more drivers. And if you happen to be in sort of the misfortune of combining both wood and steel, maybe to make axes, then the prices of axes have gone up. And you're thinking, why in the world have the price of shovels and axes gone up? Well, this is why. So anyway, I thought you might find that interesting. So let's move on. If you're in business in your town, you are the BLT sandwich. You are the people other people believe, like, and trust. And your job is to maintain that believing, the liking, and the trusting of you. So how do you do that? I've got a couple resources for you, and I thought this might be fun. If you are in business or not, the 12 months of business growth resources, that is a download. It is about 45 pages. It maps out, there's 3 pages for every month, and then there's a 5-minute solutions plan at the end of every month. And the idea is that every month you'd map out what's most important to you, what your goals are, what you're going to start doing, stop doing, what you're going to delegate, what needs your focus, what doesn't need your focus, who you're calling for just to keep up, make sure that you're still front and center. It's a really great tool. All of my masterminds, all of my execs use this tool. It is a free download for you. So it might be helpful. I'm also giving you the COVID-19 and the Future of American Business white paper. So as a former academic of 30 plus years in the classroom, we love handouts and we love writing papers. And that is what I did. So I started writing this paper called COVID-19 and the Future of American Business for 2021 and beyond. And I identified the buckets of opportunity that I saw moving forward. And then I was about 20 pages into this. And then I said to myself, you're so much better when you partner with other people. Who are the smartest people you know in the industry? So I called Mark Hunter, Sam Richter, and Meredith Elliott Powell. And I said, would you all be interested in co-authoring this white paper on COVID-19 and what's going to happen with the future of American business? And because the 4 of us put our brains together, I'm really proud of this final product. It is required reading at Berkshire Hathaway. And I was just in Omaha a couple of weeks ago, so that was awesome. And we identified the 6 buckets of opportunity, and those buckets are people, processes, resources, technology, sales and marketing, and entrepreneurship. Folks, small business in America has never been more important. So that's there for you as well. And then the business plan template that I use with a lot of my groups is there. So this is what that white paper looks like in case you are looking for some ideas. And we've broken it down under each of these topics by a variety of different challenges that we see, where we think there are opportunities and then potential solutions. So if you've got a business or you know of somebody who's just feeling a little bit stuck with their business, this might be really helpful. And this is what that 12 months of business growth looks like. Every month, there's something that looks like this to give you ideas of what you want to do more of, what you want to do less of, what are you going to complete, what are you going to streamline, and then what the month looks like. So the idea is if you're still in business, if you've got a sales team, if you're running something, you do these 2 pages every single month. It keeps you accountable. It helps your people stay accountable. And then it helps you map out what the month should look like. Now, the magic in the action plan is the time in minutes it takes to complete something. Many people don't follow through with things because it just seems overwhelming. But once you break it down into tasks and then you assign minutes to it, oh gosh, that thing that I didn't want to do, it's only going to take me 12 minutes or 31 minutes or 2 hours. It just seems like something we don't want to do. Our brain also, when we are feeling like we're in overload, it tends to procrastinate more. Your people need quick wins. If you are, say, in a school, your students need more quick wins. If let's say you're teaching right now and you're teaching high school kids and they're supposed to write a 5-page paper. Right now, for many young people, they're feeling that sense of overwhelm. So they'll procrastinate, then they feel frustrated, then they feel like they should have done more. And the internal struggle is way worse than just a 5-page paper. So if you're a teacher, you might want to think about breaking it down into manageable chunks. And again, this is not coddling right now. It's just helping people get those quick wins. And when people get a quick win, they get a burst of serotonin or dopamine or something good in your brain. And that helps a lot. So you might want to say for the 5-page paper, I want your introductory paragraph on Thursday. And then people show up with just the paragraph. They can handle a paragraph. And then give me 4 bullets of the outline of the paper, like help people get through tasks. It's the best way I can explain it. And then part of this, you're also going to get are the series of my most popular 5-minute plans. So for some people, they need the goal setting. For some people, they are looking at new marketing. For some people, they need to review last year. And that includes everything that you can leave behind, as well as, what went well, what didn't go well, what do you need to focus on moving forward. My productivity plan is always really popular. So for some people, they have a lot of wisdom and they're thinking, well, how do I pass this on? The executive coaching plan might be really helpful. And anyway, there's just a whole bunch of these. I've got about 70 of them, and I wanted to make sure that you got some great value out of today. Now, the weekly productivity plan looks a little bit like the monthly plan. As you can see, the daily productivity plan is something I do every single day of my life. I put down, the day of the week, I put down the date, I put down the calls I need to make, the follow-up, my to-dos, my appointments, and I try to make sure that I don't miss anything. This is how I do this. Now, I also use online apps. I also use all kinds of other features and technology, but putting it down on paper gets it out of my head and I can carry it around with me, and I don't need technology to figure out what I need to do next. I also confess that I'm very bad about putting down what today's accomplishments are. For some people, they need a chronological guide for the day. And I found that my community leaders also sort of like this. It helps them organize their day. What's funny is I did a group a couple weeks ago and they said, do you really start working at 6 a.m. and work till 8 o'clock at night? And I was like, well, yes. And they said, well, I'm not going to do that. I said, okay, you don't have to. So don't feel any pressure about that. If these resources are of interest to you or someone you know, and you are comfortable with it, you can text the word on your phone. You pull out your phone and you text the word dog to 66866 if you are comfortable doing this. If this is something that you think you might want to share with your kids who are running the store, just take a picture of the slide and then send it to them, and then they will get the resources. So this is the word dog to 66866. Okay, and that's not my dog. That's a paid actor dog. My dogs are not that cute. So when we talk about pivoting, we're talking about how we get people to adapt. And our leaders do need to pivot, and they need to be better at pivoting during any crisis, challenge, or change. And part of that starts with making sure our people feel, and again, I don't use the word feeling very often. I'm an economist. We tend to not do that. But we have to make sure our people feel like they have a purpose. And we as leaders have to give them the vision. Now, it's different from our mission. Our mission is what we do, like we play baseball. The vision is we're going to the World Series. Even if it's the Little League World Series, we're going to the World Series. Leaders need to create a vision that gives people this purpose and direction, and it brings them together around something bigger than themselves. And this is really important because many people just struggle with where it is they're going and what they're doing, especially during a challenge. People need a vision, and people need to know what action to take. So that 5-minute vision plan you're getting, and you might want to work through that. We also know that in the military, we tend to have a high suicide rate when people get out of the military. And my observation and working with other veterans, and just for you, my older brother, his wife, my husband, my sister, her husband, my younger brother, we're all military. We see a lot of this. People tend to lose their purpose when they get out of the military. They were used to being part of something bigger than themselves, and suddenly that's gone. And then they go back home to wherever they came from, and people don't realize what they saw and what they did, and they can't relate, and they feel a sense of loneliness, and they feel distance from other people, and it's really, really tough. So that sense of purpose cannot be overstated. Whoever you are in the community, you have the opportunity every single day to inspire and influence people to be even better. And people need this now more than ever. The I in Pivot is to inspire and influence others. The V is volatility. Now, volatility is assessing where other people are, how they're doing. For a lot of us, when you came in tonight, I love that some of you are like, hey, how you doing? Other people are like, oh, good, good. And some people are like, well, this is going on. Those people said, hey, well, this is going on. I love that because they're telling you where they are on the volatility scale. Every major shift comes with a degree of uncertainty. And anytime there's challenges, crises, or changes, people feel a sense of uncertainty. And so we have to ask people, how are you doing? but not in a way where they're going to go just fine, good, great, because that doesn't really help. Say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being fantastic and 1 being really terrible, how you doing? What's going on? How's business? On a scale of 1 to 10, give people parameters so that they know how to best respond in a way that is honest. So your response, if somebody goes, 9.5, we converted our business to online. It's never been better. It's actually less work and we're making more profit. And I love having the kids home all the time. We love homeschooling. This has been fabulous. That's a very different response from you than if somebody says, I'm a 2. My business is struggling. I'm at my wit's end. I'm tired all the time. And turns out I don't do Common Core math. So that's a very different response from you with somebody else instead of just, how you doing? Good. That doesn't really assess the volatility. We as leaders in any capacity and every capacity have to assess the volatility so that we know how to respond. Now, as Cynthia was kind enough to say, I did spend more than 20 years on active duty in the Navy. And when we're out to sea, it's a volatile situation. Anytime you've got helicopters taking things back and forth, when you're launching planes off carrier decks, when you're refueling other ships, whatever you're doing, there's degrees of volatility. And you have to remember that we don't stop working because it's Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. The ships don't stop in the middle of the Pacific Ocean because, oh, it's Friday. We're just going to stop now. It doesn't work that way. We work 24/7 because the ships have to move. People are always a little bit surprised by that. And when we launch planes off carrier decks, we don't dress people in different colored shirts because of fashion statements. We do that so that we can figure out, do I have the right people on my carrier deck when I need them? The different colored shirts denote their different jobs. So there's plane movers, there's fuelers, there's maintainers, there's maintenance, there's weapons, and there's my ops boss. And so I can look from the bridge and just by the color of their shirts, I can see I have the right people in place. Because when you're doing multiple launches at the same time, it's dangerous. And we get up close and personal to jet engines. And you think that's not safe. And you're right, it's not. And the average age of someone on board a U.S. aircraft carrier, and we only have about, think of how many people are in Perryton. We have 5,000 people on board a carrier. So think about a football field. And then in my day, there were times 2 football fields. Now they're times 3, and then 10 stories high. And then take 5,000 people and throw them into that space. That's what you're living with 6, 8, 10 months at a time. And the average age, 19 and a half years old. This is what we work with. So we have to assess the volatility and make sure everybody is working together as a team. Make sure everybody's head's in the game. Make sure everybody knows what they have to do to be successful. We've got to help people work together to create a sense of something larger than themselves. So we have to assess the volatility, but we also have to be constantly reiterating their purpose and what they need to do in order to be successful. Then we have to look for the opportunities. Now, in every situation, there are opportunities. I'm not saying be opportunistic about a crisis. That is not what I'm saying. The virus is a terrible thing and people have died and it is serious. But we do have to look and say, as leaders, we have to take stock of what's happening. And I do subscribe to the APA, the American Psychological Association's definition of what it means to be an optimist. And that is, an optimist looks at a tough situation and says, I know what to do to make that better, or I think I can make that better. And if you've ever been in a tough situation, like, maybe a piece of gear broke and nobody's ever seen that piece of gear break before, and you're like, well, we're going to have to figure it out. That's a very different situation than people who just throw up their hands and give up. An optimist is somebody who sees what has to happen and knows, okay, I may not have the answers, but I'm going to try and I know how to make this better. So there are specific opportunities out there right now. And for some people, it is focused on their community. And for those of you who are interested, I do have a 5-minute plan for this, the 5-minute opportunity plan. And my favorite question on this sheet is, what are the benefits of having this challenge right now? And then that's followed by, in a year, in 2022, what will we say was a great outcome of this situation? Maybe the situation itself wasn't great, but our outcome was great. We somehow managed to make the best of a tough situation. And that's finding the opportunity. And we know that every challenge brings with it the opportunity to help other people. And that's really why we're here in any capacity. Now, I know that today's leaders do have to know more. They have to plan more. They have to be more comfortable with chaos and change. And we know they've got to handle more crises, different crises, and we have to help people figure it out as well. And this brings us to the T. This is the tools, training, technology, and even tactics that we need to have in place so that our people know what to do in order to do their jobs well. And by our people, this could be your family members. This could be the people in your community. This could be you looking around and saying, oh gosh, that school needs this. I know how to do that. Whatever it is, the T is us looking around, finding a need and filling that need. Now, we also know that we need now more than ever innovative ideas. We know that people have to be adaptable. We know that we've got to be creatively problem solving all the time. And then once we figure that out, we have to take decisive action. And this has been where a lot of people have been frustrated for the last, 14 months, where it seemed like some people should be more decisive either in their business or, we're going to open things up or close this down or what are we going to do? And it's been frustrating when you're trying to constantly adapt. I kind of liken it because a lot of you said you had dogs, and your dog is going to play and it goes, and they jump back and forth. That's kind of what some of us feel like every single day when we wake up and go, oh, new rules. Okay. New regulations. Okay. Now what are we doing? We kind of feel like the dog constantly having to adjust. And that's part of the challenge. The uncertainty is exhausting for a lot of people. And this is where, again, we as leaders, we can't be exhausted. We can't be uncertain. We have to make decisive things happen so that people know how to do what we need them to do. Because as leaders in any capacity, whether you're a community leader, family leader, people need to know what to do in order to move forward. And many people are kind of deer in the headlights when there's a crisis. They stand there and they look, or they're like a bunny in the grass. When bunnies get scared and they kind of freeze and they're like, I'm sitting in the grass. You can't see me. I'm a little gray bunny sitting in the grass, but you can't see me. Mom said I should freeze if ever I got scared. People do that. People do the same thing. They freeze. And part of what we can do is we can encourage people to be proactive instead of reactive. We can encourage people to make decisions, even when they're tough decisions, and even if they're not sure. One of my very favorite bosses, probably my very favorite boss, was an Army 3-star general. And he was a big guy from Alabama. I'm still in touch with him. I adore this man because he taught me things. And where a lot of his other generals and his colonels were trying to get every little bit of information, he said, look, you're never going to have perfect information. He said, we learned that in Vietnam. You're never going to have all the information. Give me the information you have today. Don't put it in a PowerPoint. Don't make it pretty. Just come in and talk to me. Give me the information straight and we'll make the decisions. We will never have perfect information. We're never going to know. And what's going to happen is when we get more information, we'll adapt. That's what we need to do. And so he taught that. He taught that by example. And I find that to be so helpful now. I've seen so many business leaders just freeze and say, well, when this is over, I'm like, this is not going to be over. Or they say, well, when things get back to normal, there's never going to be a normal. And they're trying to wait it out. They're trying to wait out a crisis and they're trying not to do anything during the crisis because they don't want to be wrong. And this is where, again, I also credit my parents because my parents used to say, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And that's kind of it. We need people to lead and we need people to follow. And if you're not doing either, then you're just kind of in the way. That was my parents. Okay. And I was as I said, I was very lucky to kind of grow up in Dallas, just right down the road from y'all. So what's going to happen next? Well, this is going to go on, as I said, for quite a while. So what can we do? We have to manage what we can control. Are we taking really great care of our customers? Are we doing all the follow-up we should for our business? Are we taking care of other people in the community? Look around. Who needs help? This is where small towns win. You look around, you see somebody who needs help, and if you don't know how to help them, or you don't have the resources to help them, or you've got something else going on that day, you know who to call. Now is the time to call. Now is the time. We've got to keep that resolution phase going. We've got to understand the new reality, and then we've got to look externally on how we can help other people. And how long will this go on? The answer, forever. It's going to be forever. We're always going to have this virus. We're humans. We've been walking the planet for how many millennia? We've always had viruses. There's more bacteria in our bodies than anything else. So this is something that we're going to have to contend with forever. Okay, but it's kind of miraculous that somehow we've got this vaccine. Who knows what that looks like? And will we need boosters every year like the flu? Don't know. But we do know that this is now going to be a word that we're going to be using pretty much forever. This is the 5-minute leadership guide that I was talking to you about that just came out. It just came out 2 months ago. And it is helping especially my younger leaders, my 20 to 40-year-olds. For me, those are younger leaders. It is helping them focus because it gives them something to do that's positive at the start of the morning and then at the end of the day. And it only takes 5 minutes a day. So people like that. And look how happy they are. They're so happy. Cookies, the book, the mug, look how happy these people are. So then I just wanted to give you some very quick leadership reminders. These folks are things you already know. And of course, there's an acronym. These are just leadership reminders on how to successfully lead through a crisis. Number one, first off, there's an acronym. The acronym is CLAMPER. It started as kind of a joke with some of my surgeons, and then I kind of just kept it. So CLAMPER, like clamper. The C is calm and reassure others. People need your strategy, your presence, your perspective, as well as your vision moving forward. Some people are going to overreact. We don't need that. The L is lead through the volatility. Step up. Step into that leadership role, even if you're retired, even if you're saying, well, I only run a one-person business, or even if I'm whatever. People need leaders. They need good examples. They need people who are investing in relationships and thinking of creative ideas and helping others. The A of Clamper is to adapt quickly to changing opportunities and changing situations. We've got to be adaptable. So look for ways to improve your processes, your procedures, and of course, always your people. We can always improve. Every day I try to before I go to bed, I try to make a note, and it's in the book. What did I learn today? What did I learn today? Even if I don't know anything, if I can't think of something, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have to get up and look something up. Every day we try to improve processes, procedures, and people, and it starts with us. The M in Clamper is to manage uncertainty. How you do this is, again, when people circle the wagons and get very myopic and inwardly focused, they need more communication from us. So how you manage the uncertainty is you give people more data, more facts, as well as more encouragement. Give people more communication more often. I found this to be especially true with young people who are feeling more dissociated from their friends, especially now. They need more communication. And you can't just say it once. You have to say something multiple times and in different ways. You manage the uncertainty with more communication, even if you don't have all the answers. Nobody expects you to have all the answers. The P, of course, is to promote collaborationship. Just like I called Mark Hunter, Sam Richter, and Meredith Elliott Powell on that paper, they are my closest competitors in the market, and they're smart. So why wouldn't I get together with them and collaborate and put together something better than I could come up with myself? Look around, look at your suppliers, look at your customers, look at your competitors, and see who else is out there that you could work with. Who else is out there that might be helpful to you? Who else could you help? I got a note today that I was supposed to be doing an event, or I was on the list to do an event in June. And they said, oh, we went with this guy. And I'm thrilled for him. And they were like, we're really sorry. We liked you both. And it's kind of like, we didn't choose you to go on the date Saturday night, but we decided to, ask your best friend out. It kind of feels like that. And I know the guy, and I said, "Oh, he is a great choice." He just had me on his podcast. I just featured him and his book in one of my weekly articles in my newsletter a couple of weeks ago. I am thrilled that you're bringing him in. He is a great choice. We have to be happy for our competitors when they do well. And this comes from promoting them and being confident in what it is we do and working together so that we're growing the pie for everybody. That's the idea. And then the E in Clamper is to encourage resiliency, encourage the bounce. What I didn't tell you is that in that texting that word dog 66866, you will also get the free ebook called Resiliency, the 7 skills to bounce back. Many people are struggling with bouncing. They're struggling with resiliency. They're struggling with, negative emotions and depression and all kinds of things, and they feel lonely. So we have to encourage resiliency. And it's kind of like those balls that you had in school, and you'd throw them on the ground, the big rubber balls that we used to play dodgeball with. I don't know if schools play dodgeball anymore now. It seems kind of dangerous. But the harder you throw the ball on the ground, the higher it bounces. It's kind of true with people too. The more people are tested, the easier it is to bounce for the next thing. And so some people say, well, how does that person just keep dealing with, all these things that life keeps throwing at them? They've developed the skills to be resilient, and not everybody has that. So we have to encourage resiliency, help people see those next steps, break things down into smaller chunks. And then the R is to respond correctly to changing information. Like my general, we're not always going to have perfect information. We're always going to have new information. So we need to make sure we are taking decisive action based on the information we have at the time, based on what we've got. We're never going to have perfect information. We don't know everything about the next challenge or crisis or change. We don't know everything about this one. We have to understand we just have to do the best we can with what we have, with the time we have. So again, if you want any of those resources, you can text the word dog to 66866. One dog, not 2 dogs, one dog, singular dog, to 66866. And with that, I am ready for questions. If you have questions, this is my screen. If for some reason you can't get those resources and you'd like me to email them to you, please go ahead, take a picture of the slide or write down my email. It's mary@productiveleaders.com, and I will cheerfully send you these attachments. I never want to send things to people if it clogs up their emails and things they don't want, and so on. I try to be really respectful of that. Here's kind of a collection of the books I've got going right now, and I do like dogs, so I try to put dogs on my covers when I can. The occasional dog will make its way through. So with that, I would love to take questions with you. I will stop screen sharing and I can see you. Does anybody have any questions or any specific challenge I can address?
You're talking about you wish there was more of that in the corporate world. I think one advantage ranch and farm people have is our children can work. And I've had family that had businesses in OSHA won't let their kids work.
Right.
They're 16 years old. They can't drive the pickup into the washroom.
Yep. I had the Texas hardship license at 14 for the farm. Yep. I'm totally with you. Yep.
You're telling your age.
I had a regular license at 14, so
Harvey did too.
Mm-hmm. Y'all may have a few years on me. For sure.
I know during World War II, I was 10 years old when I was driving a wheat truck.
And nobody cared if you had a license.
Nobody else to work.
Right.
Yeah, Harvey's father tied him on the tractor, so if he fell back, he wouldn't fall into
The combine.
the something, whatever he's pulling. Yeah. And he started at 14. Got his driver's license and started. Well, I think Harvey said he was 9 years old when his dad put him on a tractor.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like today's kids, they don't have you got to do this and learn how to do this. I feel like they're just there and the parents aren't training them for jobs or locations and stuff like that.
They're having lots of activities, but maybe not life skill
Right,
activities.
yeah.
Good sports. While you're working.
I like your comment on
Yeah.
change. I like your comments on change and how you go about change.
Thank
We're all-
you. So, Mr. Superintendent, sir, there's an additional resource that might be helpful for you. And you're not in the program we're doing tomorrow, are you?
No, my assistant is.
Okay, great.
I
So-
chose to let her go first.
Okay. So there's an additional resource that you might find helpful, and it is based on the book called Why Leaders Fail and the 7 Prescriptions for Leadership Success. So, Mr. Superintendent, if I might ask, you write down the number 7, prescriptionsforsuccess.com. And that will take you to a website that has the leadership assessment that I am sharing with the group tomorrow that they are getting. It's 7, the number 7, whichever direction that looks to you, prescriptionsforsuccess.com. And that has it's the most popular chapter. It's on trust, but it also has a course handout on those 7 areas where people just struggle. People get to a certain point and then they just struggle. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow, but that leadership assessment, you can use that with all of your people. It is totally free. It is 100% confidential. We do not keep the results. We don't keep the emails. We don't do any of that. It will ask people for the email. We're not technologically smart enough to figure out how to keep those. And that's a good thing because my executives would never, ever do it if they thought we were keeping those results or their emails. So the leadership assessment is at 7prescriptionsforsuccess.com. And we're going to be doing that tomorrow as well. So that might be a series of resources for you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. I think it's hard to be a superintendent right now, especially now.
Yeah, COVID was a really tough year so far. I mean,
And it's not over.
Closing schools, mask, not mask, distancing. It's been a fun year.
I cannot even imagine. I stopped teaching in May of 2019 and as a professor. So I was just on the road all the time. I'm on the road 20 days a month generally. And I would do an event, fly to Denver that night, drive down to Colorado Springs, go teach school for the day, drive directly back to the airport, get on a plane, go do another job. Like, it was just crazy. And so finally I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And then it all hit. So I kind of feel lucky that I got out at that time.
Yeah.
Although I've been teaching online. I started teaching online in 1998 for Hawaii Pacific University. And when our dean came in and said, we've got to be able to put classes online, we universally said, this is a terrible idea. We don't want to do this. And then our dean said, but this is how we can get classes to deployed military people. And then we all saw the reason for it. So we started with Blackboard, WebCT way back then. And then when I taught at Navy, I said, we could do these online courses. They're like, that is a terrible idea. And then same reaction at the Air Force Academy. So I've been kind of doing this since 98, and I've done it for some other universities, but I've done D2L, e-college, e-learning, Canvas, all of them. And for some people, that learning curve is really tough, and it's just hard. However, this is forced acceleration of change. And for some people, they realize that it's harder and you got to do different things depending upon the age of your students and depending upon their abilities. And Mr. Superintendent, your students are smart. There are kids who have figured out how to make video, and they're looping video while they're off playing video games. And that's what they're seeing. That's what the teacher sees on Zoom. So your kids are smart.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They know things that we don't know as well.
I think probably one of the tough things is they had to adapt so quickly. They didn't have time to do lots of planning and move into it gradually. It had to happen quick.
The good thing about that, though, so the kids adapted really fast for the most part. It's the teachers. But for the teachers, it was a Band-Aid that got ripped off. And so, yes, it would have been nice if we'd had 10 years to figure this out, but then it's just 10 years of delay and procrastination. They had to figure it out fast. And I got to tell you, some of the best sources out there are Google. If you Google how to do great online presentations for teachers, it is leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of the things a lot of my peers were doing, because teachers are creative and they're clever and they have to entertain little people. And, you know, a 7-year-old is not going to have a whole lot of attention for a lot of stuff. So we're all actually learning now from your teachers.
I agree with that.
Any other comments? Well, thank you for your time, Mary, tonight. We look forward to being with you tomorrow with the class. And we thank Lacey and Excel Energy for helping be the sponsor. We will not have a session in May, but we will have one in June. As I said earlier, we had to skip a couple of months because of COVID. So we are going to have a class in June, and then we'll have the class graduation in July. So we will have a session in June, and we're going to have Kelly Barnes with us. His topic is Make It a Habit. So how to try to get some new good habits and make it a habit. So thank you very much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you in June.
Thank you, Mary.
See you in
Thanks,
June.
everybody. Thanks.
Bye.